Okay, welcome to my tutorial. I had recorded this earlier. It only recorded audio and lost all footage. So this is the second re-recording of it. Uh, so first things first is subdivision. This whole tutorial is only about subdivision. I'm not here to teach any more or less than such a subdivision for modeling. So the initial things about subdivision you should know is how it interacts with geometry. As you see on screen, you can see examples of before subdivision and after subdivision. These are examples of geometry I use when I make my characters and clothing via poly modeling. Since I don't use, I can sculpt, I can box model. My most preferred method is, however, just poly modeling straight up. So for example, before subdivision, what I like to use a lot of most of the times is examples of 1, 2, 4. The other two you can use. I like using these ones a lot more just to keep things a lot more lower poly and simpler. And after subdivision, you can see what these do. And if you want to see this, you can see this. Even if you don't add okay, these have to be mostly quads, yes. However, you can add triangles, but you should know how that interacts before you add it. You shouldn't add triangles willy-nilly without knowing how that'll interact with your geometry, since using triangles can heavily affect your vertex normals, which means you have broken shading or poor topology. So for example, let's add a triangle here, and add one here, 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 here. Let's say I needed that for, like, let's say something Arc Systems inspired, like Dragon Fighterz, Guilty Gear Strive, and this is how I make my ILM line, for example. Let's say that's the case. If I subdivide it, it'll create some odd geometry we don't exactly like. I mean, it'll turn tris into quads, but it'll do this to geometry. And if this was your line, you'll have some weird weight pain here, like if you had a rig here originally. So let's go, for example, my previous model I made a couple earlier this year. It was this model of Anya Forger from Spy X Family. This one is complete using subsurf from a low poly model. When I make these models, I usually apply subsurf, then I decimate, then apply that to have the finished model. Then afterwards, I will clean up and edit to create the finalized head and cleaned up head, or clothing and hair. Most things would be doing that for me anyway. So let's say clothing here. This is very rough. I did speedrun this model in less than a day, which was less than 12 hours. So there was a triangle used here, which turned into quad. I used triangles on the wrinkles to create the wrinkles. Then I decimated, then added subsurf, and it got this result. This is what I made with subsurf and decimating without any editing to the geometry afterwards. And if I would show an example of a character model I made in this blend file earlier in the recording, but the recording got corrupted and I lost my footage. I had proportions here I used for the character's head, and I references up, and the character mesh I had modeled during the recording session. This is a very rushed model. There are things I would like to clean up, however, this is, let's say, the very basic subdivision after modeling from low poly mesh. So this is how it would look after I'm done doing things to an extent, because this is before I add the arc system triangles to the mouth area. However, before we get to that, let me show you here. You can see the geometry compression here and here, which was added during subsurf with the before and after. I would add those there. And the forehead has the compression here too, which is this one over here. You can see this is a finalized head using triangles from a subsurf model. Before this model got tries, this entire area was never here. The subsurf model was sort of like this, without any neck and scalp. So if I hide this, this was basically the original model originally when it was subsurf only, but then I added some triangles here to clean up the shapes of the quarter angle or three-fourths view. Compress some geometry here, since not all triangles are bad within anime modeling, but to compress this into the eyelash area is probably not preferable if you're doing this for something more realistic looking. However, using triangles for compression is completely fine for anime. But you can still see here using quads, optimally the best. You just need to know when to use triangles, like this area here. The person will never see this area, since it'd be hidden by hair or a scalp mesh for the hairline. You just have to think about when it's appropriate to use triangles and this kind of edge flow geometry for topology. This one right here, Mochi, from Mochi to Rock. The hair right now. With this mesh, it is using mostly all quads, mostly. There's some tries being used, however, that's only in the eyelashes primarily, I think. No, the eyelashes are quads too. So the only triangles here are the wrinkles on the forehead of the eye. However, you see these pink lines? These are creases. These creases are used to hold the geometry so you can keep the shape you want. Without it, you'd have stuff coming like this. You'd have your model looking like that. That's not very preferable. It just creates a lot of incorrect shapes. However, with creases, you can give it the shape that you want it to. Like, for example, let's say I needed one here, maybe one there. It'll hold that shape a lot nicer. And if I remove it, it's a lot smoother now. Better example is on here, on the lips. For the side profile. This part is only 0.49 on the lips. But if I get 0, it makes it too smooth. I mean, it's still okay shape, but I would much prefer to be kind of sharp. Still sort of smooth. If I put it all the way to 1, it makes it too sharp. Same here in the bottom, 0.49. I make it 0 again, we zoom out. You see what I mean by it's too smooth now. Bring it back. It's a lot nicer in shape and it's a lot more accurate to the design or reference that you're working off of. Like, for example, this is a lot more accurate to the reference I'm using. Let's say, for example, you want to use models existing from a video game for a quick render or a thumbnail on YouTube for, let's say, a gameplay video. I've done this trick before on the Demon Slayer game for Tanjiro for a render before, and my own custom from scratch models, my low poly Tanjiro model I've made before. So back to this. This is the model before Subdivision. It's the original file from Fighterz. However, I import the GLTF, the raw file. If I click on this one, you can see how there's many pink lines these are what I showed you support the shapes that you don't want, correct? And if I hit 1, you can see just a lot more tiny ones, which are on vertices only, which I want to keep these shapes of. I want to keep these shapes a bit sharper since they look a bit odd, too smooth. It depends on the style you're after, though. However, when it comes to this, with game stuff, you usually want to just quickly do this. You want to avoid quads like this. However, importing mods like this, you want to learn by distance. Sharp edge is activated here. Select similar sharpness, and to open this tab up, we increase 1. You will have something very similar to what I have over here. However, you do have to do some manual edits as this does not cover everything, like the normals, eyes, mouth, and head shape for the normals. You're going to have to do some manual editing here to create the shapes you need. So for example, I'm going to do only one half of the head, and the other half I'm not going to touch. So you can see the difference between a creased side and non-creased side. Over to here, I'm just creasing up this area, go to normal to keep their shapes. And this is the exact same thing I would do on my from scratch models once they're done being made. So I can make my renders as high quality as possible with the models. However, I don't really normally do this to my main models for renders. I like to keep my main renders to the original geometry to show that the model looks good, even if it's with the original geometry. So when clients receive their models, it'll look exactly the same in the engine they use for VTubers. It'd be in Unity using VC Base. Oh, and let me I forgot one thing. With Subdivision, like I said earlier, you don't want to work with tries. These game models are full of tries, correct? You just hit A, Control F, tries to quads, hit on compare UVs, compare VCols, and compare sharp, and you will retain your normals, your vertex colors, and the UV map, so you won't break the UV map when you turn the tries to quads. So this is as close as possible to what the original geometry could have looked like from the game before it got tried. So let me turn these into seams. Show the before and after of using seams and not using seams. Subsurf. And one. I'm using up here on the eyebrow, the ILM lines used by art systems here with a lot of messy artifacts up here. We don't use those lines. Let me clear this side. Let me add 2 vertice ones here, vertex crease here. And then gotta add some more holding ones on the lips. Do only one half, like I said earlier, so the difference. And once that's fully done, actually not fully done yet, let's go to the neck here. One. Go. And that's pretty much what we'd be after. I do subsurf. Advanced, custom normals. turn off optimal display, wireframe, grease pencil. You can see here, left piece via right. These parts are a lot sharper than this side, being a lot smoother. Just to a brighter color. The eyes are a lot sharper in the corners. The other side's a lot more rounded. The normals are a lot sharper here and retain their original shape. Jawline here keeps its shape. Lips keep its shape a bit better. There's only one loop here, so it's less ugly. The other side has 1, 2, because this part's stretched out. As you can see right here, it's going up like this, but it stays nice and tight with the lip shape. Over here, without that curve here, without that crease rather, the normals will start to bend weirdly up to like this point here. Cheek normals here is also weirdly abstract, including this triangle part on the cheek. So if I go into solid, hide the grease pencil, turn off wireframe, show the normals in the matte cap, you can see how the right side's a lot messier and broken compared to the left side where it's a lot cleaner. And if you're wondering what this looks like, this is what the final render result looks like with Subsurf on. And all the compositing nodes get added. The shader used on this model is made by Fighterz. I'll put his GitHub and Discord into the description. Any and all compositing, however, was done by me. And that's about it. For this tutorial, I don't have much else to say. If you need help or more examples, feel free to hit me up in my Discord server. I have a questions and help chat in there. You can send pictures and ask for help down there.